So, my original plan was to take a weekend trip up to Dallas for the Chosen Con, but my body decided that it would rather take a surprise ambulance visit to the ICU, and so I ended up having to miss the Chosen Con altogether, which was really sad because I was really looking forward to meeting a lot of y'all in person. That being said, we still have Chosen content to cover because as of today, the Chosen Season 4 teaser trailer has been released, so let's get to our initial reaction and breakdown.
It's time.
What wondrous love is this? Oh, my
Listen carefully to my
soul.
words.
Oh, my soul.
There are those for whom this will set off a series of events.
What wondrous love is this? Oh, my soul.
My followers won't understand. The Son of Man must suffer many things. But you are the Son of God.
What wondrous love is this that caused the Lord of bliss
I know it's hard. Man makes it much harder.
to bear the dreadful curse?
When he leans on his own understanding.
To bear the dreadful curse.
I dread what is to come. Story nearing its end.
For my soul.
All right. Cool. Coming to theaters February. All right. Well, we are going to have a busy February, aren't we? Okay. Well, so there's a lot of stuff to talk about with that teaser trailer. I will give you a heads up right off the bat. If my sleuthing goggles aren't really just up to par today, that's because, once again, I did spend the last few days in the hospital and stuff, and I'm still a little bit lightheaded and everything. And if you want to know all the details behind that, just go look at some of the other videos I've had on this YouTube channel. And so if I'm not up to par, I apologize. Also, I probably need to preface this by saying that I have really not been keeping up to date with any of the Chosen Season 4 behind-the-scenes content, mainly because I have so many other things that have just been going on in my life. And so what we're going to do is we're just going to walk through this, and let's see if I can kind of figure out what's going on. Some of y'all, if y'all watch some of the other Chosen YouTube channels, you probably have a better idea than I do, but I'm going into this pretty blind, and we're just going to see if we can kind of figure this out together. I do think that was a pretty good little teaser trailer. But okay, so we start off here. And it looks like we start off with Jesus. Let me just click play. All right, so we have Jesus standing here. He's out in the field, probably just, I imagine, praying. It looks like he's waiting for the news of something. I don't know what for, just because it seems kind of weird to be just randomly standing there, but I'm not going to think about that too much. So we got him there, probably just
It's
praying,
time.
probably thinking about what's coming. He says it's time.
What
Whereas in previous seasons, he said, it's not yet time. My time has not yet come. Then we have him sitting here with some of the disciples. I'm pretty sure this is from a scene that they released a few weeks or months back at this point, but I never actually got around to seeing that scene. So y'all probably, once again, know more about this scene than I myself do.
wondrous love is
But let's
this?
see what else we got here.
my
Listen carefully to my
soul.
words.
Oh, my
Okay, so here we got all the disciples, and we got some Roman guards, it looks like here. And the Roman guards look like they have some sort of packs in their hands. And just given the way that they're walking over to the disciples, I imagine what's probably going to happen here is probably something along the lines of what you read about in Jesus' teachings. Whenever he says, if somebody makes you walk with them 1 mile, walk with them 2 miles, right? The idea of just almost killing people with kindness, in the sense of even if somebody is trying to lord their power over you, submit to them and go the extra mile, right? We use this phrase even nowadays in our current culture, but it actually calls back to a Roman practice where they could literally just give you their bags and force you to carry them for 1 mile. And so Jesus is saying, go the extra mile. I imagine that that's probably going to be something that he's teaching the disciples here, which kind of makes sense because a big aspect of this whole season is going to be teaching them that his whole kingdom thing that he's doing is radically different than what they expected, and it doesn't involve resistance to the Romans. It actually involves submitting even unto death, right? And so that's going to be a big aspect of the season, I imagine.
soul.
there are those for whom this will set off a series of events.
What one
So here we have, Herod's niece, right, Salome, who is dancing here. I imagine this is probably during their performance before Herod Antipas, which is ultimately going to lead to John the Baptist's death. Really ornate setup here. Like, just the cinematography of this shot in particular is actually just really beautiful.
wondrous love is this?
Here Jesus is outside of the synagogue in Capernaum. I don't really know what's going on here. I feel like I did watch like one video from like my friend Brandon Snipe, I think, where he was talking about that this is going to be like the scene where like Jesus does the woe to the scribes and Pharisees, which biblically speaking, that took place over in Jerusalem during like Passion Week. I'm pretty confident. But right here, it seems like they're having it in Capernaum, which does seem like it kind of misses the point of what Jesus was going for, because he's really taking on the Jewish leaders in Jerusalem. And that kind of sets in motion really the events leading to his death. But they're probably just going to put that in this season just to add some extra tension. I'm pretty sure that's what he had said this scene was about. But yeah, just once again, I'm more distracted by all the just like the set decorations because they've done such a great job with this.
Oh, my soul.
Matthew writing
My
something down.
followers won't understand.
Okay, his apostles seem worried. Judas looks like he's drenched in water, which is
The Son of Man must.
we got John the Baptist being taken off to prison. Okay, I gotta say this. Not off to prison. I'm off to be killed probably. That's probably gonna happen. I imagine it has to be early on in the season, probably like episode 1 or 2. I'd probably lean towards episode 1. I'm really surprised that they took so long to kill off John the Baptist, especially, like, honestly, I think the biggest issue that I've had, and y'all know this if you've been watching my channel long enough, the biggest issue I've had with The Chosen is their chronology, because there's so much biblical stuff that you could cover, and there's so much there's so rich source material, but the way that they've handled the chronology of the show is probably my biggest gripe against it, because the pacing really seems off. It seems like in many ways they've kind of just gone off to tell their own story that's a little bit different than just the natural pacing of the Bible, because obviously the chronology of like what happened first, what happened last, and stuff like that, sometimes that's a little bit hard to discern whenever you're reading the biblical content itself. But there is a certain flow to the story, right? And there's certain chronological details that we can pick up on that just allow the story to have more room for breath. Whereas whenever you just look at seasons 1 through 3 of The Chosen, if you're just strictly watching them from episode 1 through episode 24, I guess it would be. If you're just strictly watching those episodes, it still feels like you're very early on in Jesus' ministry, right? But then we know that over the course of season 4, we are going to span the rest of Jesus' ministry all the way until, so that season 5 is going to be Passion Week, right? It's going to be the last week leading to his crucifixion. That is wild to me, right? Because it seems like we're going to have to cover so much ground in season 4, or you have to read so much extra time into seasons 1 through 3, which if you go watch my chronology video that I did on this YouTube channel, where I literally just broke down the chronology of The Chosen and tried to basically fix the Chosen timeline, I had to add a lot of time jumps into it just to make it stretch out those first 3 seasons to a lot longer than what it originally seems like. But really, just the way that the show feels as you're watching it is that it still feels like you're very early on in Jesus' ministry, just like the early months. But then we know that by the end of the season, we're going to be reaching the last week of his life, right? So that season 5 is going to be that last week, and I'm assuming season 6 is going to be the crucifixion, and season 7, the resurrection. So it really seems like they're really just focusing in on those last, those main events there, which makes sense because the Gospels do as well. But the main reason I'm saying all this is because it baffles me how long they kept John the Baptist alive. Because John the Baptist is really, I mean, he's one of my favorite characters. Don't get me wrong. I love John the Baptist, both in scripture and in The Chosen. But he's one of those characters that in the Gospels themselves, he's such a fleeting character that you're left wanting more about him, right? He shows up as like this brief footnote at the beginning of Jesus' ministry. He's the one who paves the way for the Messiah. And then you just have this one little detail later on where it mentions like people are talking about John the Baptist throughout the whole story, but then he just dies. And it's off screen, and then you just, like, you hear about what happened, and then Jesus grieves, and then he goes, and he has the whole feeding the 5,000 and stuff like that, right? Whereas they kind of did flip the chronology of that to where we had the feeding the 5,000 at the end of season 3, and I was confident that they had to at least kill John the Baptist at some point in season 3, but they didn't do it. And so it baffles me that they're really just saving John the Baptist's death for this season, but I'm assuming it's probably just more of a thematic purpose, right? Because it just seems weird to me that you're going to have John the Baptist's death in season 4 and then the setup for Jesus' death in season 5, right? Like it just seems so close together where you really don't have much time for Jesus to just be on his own, which is really the majority of the story that you read when you actually look at the Gospels. So that's just really kind of baffling to me. I've lingered on this probably way too long, but it's just one of those things that really does stick out to me, just because it does kind of change the overall feeling of the story, I guess, whenever you're watching The Chosen versus whenever you're reading the Bible. But if I were to give my guess as to why they're doing this, it's probably because this season is supposed to be where things really start getting serious, right? To where you just basically have a lot of death in this season to really add weight to the gravity of where this whole story's heading. And so I kind of get why they did it. It just doesn't change the fact that it's still kind of a baffling choice to me.
Suffer many things. But you are the Son of God.
That phrase, but you are the Son of God, right? We're probably going to see in this whole season just the disciples being confused, because back in season 2, whenever Jesus first met Philip, he talked about how he was trying to come up with a way to talk to his disciples about what is going to happen in the future. And I imagine in this season, we're going to see him finally beginning to tell them this, right? I imagine we're going to have the scene where Peter confesses Jesus, right? Where Simon confesses Jesus and Jesus gives him the name Peter. And then probably right after that, Jesus is going to tell them what's going to happen to him, right? We're going to go down to Jerusalem and they're going to kill me. Right? And I imagine that the disciples are going to have a tough time wrestling through this because, I mean, you're the Son of God. How can this happen? Right? I imagine that maybe even that quote that we just had here on the audio, maybe that's from that scene, right? Where literally Peter just confessed, you are the Christ, the Son of God. And then Jesus follows that up by saying, and they're going to kill me. And he's like, but you're the Son of God. So I think that'll be really hard for them. And then we have a woman here. I think this is Mary Magdalene. She's walking to a tomb, and presumably this is going to be the tomb of Lazarus. Which once again, it blows my mind that we're already killing off Lazarus here, right? It just seems like the chronologies just feel so squished together in the Chosen universe, whereas just in the Gospels themselves, the chronology is already pretty squished, because really Jesus' ministry seems to have only been about 3.5 years. Whereas in the Chosen universe, it only feels like it's just a few months. But maybe whenever we actually watch season 4, it'll expand.
Wondrous love is this now.
You might have a kind of illusion here. I'm assuming that this is after Lazarus has been resurrected, because a woman wouldn't just be this close to the tomb, an open tomb, if there's a dead body in there. And also we don't have any mourners around or anything. So I would assume this is after Lazarus has been resurrected, and she's probably looking in there, reflecting on what Jesus has done. And then I imagine they'll have a payoff to this probably in season 7, whenever Mary Magdalene is the first person to encounter the resurrected Jesus. I'm really hoping that the way they do that in season 7 is I hope it's like season 7, episode 1, even though I imagine that what they'll probably do is maybe they'll just linger on the effects of Jesus' death for a lot of the season, and they'll maybe save it for the last episode. I have no idea what they're planning on doing. But I would love it to be in either the first or the last episode of the season. You know what? Maybe if they could save the resurrection for the last episode, that'd be cool, but I would like to see them explore the post-resurrection Jesus. But I would love it to where if what you had was at the very end of season 7, right? You have Mary coming to the tomb just like this, and she's looking in it, but it's not Lazarus' tomb, it's Jesus' tomb, and it's empty, right? And then you could have season 7 ending in the way that the first episode of season 1 ended, right? With Jesus saying Mary and then drawing her in. But instead of whenever she tries to hug him, he says, don't cling to me, right? Because I'm going to have to go to the Father, right? I don't know. I don't know how to do all that. But this could be an allusion to that, right? All right. So we have Jesus walking in the front, all the disciples following him. I imagine this is them taking the journey to Jerusalem, because that is really what the season is going to be about, right? Like if you go look at the Gospel of Luke, like the majority of that gospel is about this single journey right here, right? It is the journey from Galilee to Jerusalem, right? There's this huge, like people call it the Lucan travelogue, right? It's literally Jesus going all the way from the north to the south as he goes to Jerusalem. I imagine that's what they're doing right now. They're probably heading down to Jerusalem.
I know it's hard.
I think this is Herod, right? So this would be Herod Antipas. Looks a little bit different than I'm used to him being depicted. Usually he's depicted a little bit more kind of feminine looking and like a more blend of like Hebrew and Greek culture. I guess you kind of see that here. Herod Antipas is a very intriguing figure, just historically speaking, and so I'll be interested to see how they handle this. Judas. Oh, okay. I saw this whenever we were watching it. Okay, so we have Judas here, and this is funny. There's just so much. There's so many things where I wish I could have changed just a few little things about past seasons, right? Like also introducing Judas so late into the story means that we haven't had as much build up to his character, right? Where Judas still feels like a brand new character because we've only had one season with him, right? Because he wasn't introduced until the last episode of season 2. And you really don't even know fully who he is until literally like the end of season 2, right? But right here we have Judas with the money bag, right? Because he's now in charge of it. And what you're going to see is he's looking at the coins, and then he's briefly going to, after examining it for a little bit, he's going to just stuff one into his pocket. And that's because one thing that we see from the Gospels, I think it's in the Gospel of John, where it tells us that Judas had been stealing money along the way, right? And then if you go to the Gospel of Matthew, he emphasizes that the main thing that motivated Judas to betray Jesus was his greed, right? And so here we see some of that showing up. I kind of wish that we'd had a little bit longer with Judas to be more heartbroken by the downfall. Even though I imagine they're probably going to do a lot of work with Judas in this season, and I don't know what episode this is from and stuff, right? So I'm not saying that they're not going to make up for it. I'm just saying that I kind of wish that we'd had a little bit longer with Judas, because he just feels like such a new character. I just love the opportunities they could have explored even further by having him even longer for the duration that we've had some of the other apostles, just to kind of see that downfall slowly creep in there. But no matter what, I think they're probably going to do a great job. Those are just my thoughts.
Man makes it much harder.
to bed.
All right, so we had Jesus laying in bed at night, his eyes opening. And then we have Lazarus here. It looks like he's holding his grave clothes. So I'm imagining this is post-resurrection, right? He's probably come back to life, and he's looking at this and reflecting on what Jesus has done.
The dreadful
Okay, here we have Big James seemingly attacking somebody with a dagger. And John is holding him back. I don't know what the context of this would be, but it looks like, notice that everybody seems to be running away, right? Everybody else seems to be running away. James seems to be running into the fight. Here, let's look at that again. Yeah, see, so James is running into the fight. Everybody else is running away. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe you have some Romans here who are trying to do something to Jesus, and everybody else is fleeing for their own safety. And then James, who just naturally has demonstrated that he feels like a protector of Jesus, he might be launching in there to try to help. But I don't know. I have no idea what's going on. Okay, here we have somebody burning some parchments. I don't know what those parchments say. They look like they're written in... I was going to say that looks like Hebrew, but that actually might be Latin or Greek, or maybe Latin, Greek, and Aramaic. I have no idea. I'd have to look at a more high resolution image of that. I'm imagining this might be Quintus, because it looks like they might be in Quintus's office, but I don't know what they're...
Leans on his own understanding.
This seems to be everybody waiting for the resurrection of Lazarus, right? So that's going to be happening this season. Here we have Zebedee, Simon Z, and Andrew watching something. Is this the same scene from before? Let me see. I don't see them there. Oh yeah, there's the new guy who's playing Philip. Here we have Mary and Martha, presumably. Mother Mary is over here. This looks like a different location. This guy, he's got mud on his face. He looks startled. I'm going to assume that guy is the blind guy that Jesus heals. From putting mud on his face. I wonder what story this is, because there's a significant story. I don't know if they're adapting this story or not, but there's a significant story about Jesus healing a blind man at the pool of Siloam, but that's over in Jerusalem, whereas the background here looks like it's the Capernaum synagogue. It's the synagogue in Capernaum. And so I don't think they're going to be in Jerusalem in this season. I think they might make their way down there, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they'll celebrate Hanukkah or something in Jerusalem, so maybe there'll be an episode or two there. But I think most of this season is probably going to be traveling on their way down there, so we'd probably see the story with Lazarus taking place near the end, because Bethany is right outside of Jerusalem and stuff. So they're definitely shifting some of the chronology and certain different dynamics here, and so this could be the story of the blind man, but maybe they've just changed the location. They've done that several times in the show to where not all this stuff has been 100% biblically accurate. I don't know, but I can almost guarantee you this is him healing some sort of blind man. All right. Okay, well, now this does look like they're in Jerusalem now. This looks like Jerusalem. Jesus walking into the temple courtyard. And in the past, we've seen all these stalls. Maybe we're going to have a cleansing of the temple. I would think they would save that for next season, though, because the way I imagine this season is going to end is with the triumphal entry, or even maybe just the setup for the triumphal entry, and then next season would open up with like cleansing the temple. But I don't know. Maybe this one he's just coming in and looking at it. Okay. Oh, so there looks like Salome's like practicing for her dance. I don't know. Um, we have an arm wrestling contest between Andrew and John. That's very out of place, but
I pray.
all right. Jesus is praying out in agony. Who's standing behind him there? So Jesus is going through it. Here we have Jesus and the disciples not going through it. They're actually having a good time, just sharing a meal. Doesn't seem to be a special festival or anything because there's not ornate decorations. They're probably just having little.
What is to come?
Okay, so we see that there's some happy moments here. Okay, good. So like at the end of this teaser, we're actually getting to see some more uplifting stuff. Oh yeah. Oh, I've seen parts of this where the where they're like playing their music and stuff like that. That's so exciting. That's really cool. I actually have a kinnor, like a lyre, like a David harp, that I bought in the city of David whenever I was in Jerusalem this past February. So that's really cool. All right, so people are walking around. Oh, people are just going through it. Going through water. What was that? That's John the Baptist breaking off his chains. I wonder what this is. Is it going to be like a vision or something? Or like a dream sequence? I wonder if it's like, that's what Jesus was waking up from earlier, where he, this is just very interesting. Like even like those rocks in the background, that's just a very kind of beautiful layout. But we have John the Baptist breaking his chains off, right? Is this maybe a dream that John the Baptist is having, or is it a dream that Jesus is having? Or is it maybe after John the Baptist has died and Jesus is viewing him in the afterlife? So I don't know. There's so many different ways they could go with this. I imagine this is probably going to be a dream sequence of what Jesus wants to happen, but then he's going to wake up, and that's not what's happening. I don't know. All right.
Storing.
We have lights, being like some candles being lit. Thomas.
Nearing its end.
What is it?
Nearing its end.
The story is nearing its end.
For my soul.
Yeah. So the story is nearing its end. It doesn't feel like it is. But once again, we're season 4, right? So once we get 4 episodes into this, we'll be halfway through the whole show, Lord willing, because the show is hopefully going to go a full 7 seasons. And so it says the story is nearing its end, but keep in mind, as of yet, we haven't even seen half of the show. And so they definitely are emphasizing the passion story of Jesus for the most of this whole show, it seems like. But that's not too different from the Gospels themselves. Once again, I just kind of wish that there had been some more room to breathe. And so, long story short, I thought it was a pretty good teaser. I thought they covered a lot of good stuff, and I'm looking forward to what season 4 has to bring. Thank you for watching this with me. Once again, if my sleuthing wasn't really up to par, it's because I've kind of been sick and out of it, and I'm still recovering. But thank you so much for watching this. This is my name is David Tate. This is Now Let's Be Honest. Be sure to keep a smile on your face. Don't anybody steal your joy. Remember who you are, and of course, Maranatha.